What happens when a beloved daytime host faces off against royalty gone rogue? It only took one comment about privilege for Prince Harry to completely lose his composure and storm off the set in the most shocking exit in talk show history. Kelly Clarkson's studio was buzzing with the usual pre-show energy. Audience members settled into their seats, excited for what they thought would be a lighthearted conversation. Prince Harry had been making the rounds promoting his latest project, and Kelly's team had secured what everyone assumed would be a friendly chat. After all, Kelly was known for her warm, disarming interview style. She made everyone feel comfortable. But what nobody predicted was that this particular afternoon would spiral into television chaos. The show started innocently enough. Kelly walked onto the stage with her signature smile, that genuine warmth that made millions of viewers tune in every single day. The audience erupted in applause as she waved and took her seat. Then Prince Harry walked out, and the cheers grew even louder. He smiled and waved, settling into the guest chair across from Kelly. Everything seemed perfect. Kelly started with the easy questions. She asked about his recent travels, his adjustment to life in California, and his thoughts on the sunny weather compared to the constant rain back in England. Prince Harry answered smoothly, his practiced charm on full display. He laughed at the right moments, nodded thoughtfully when appropriate, and seemed completely at ease. The audience was eating it up. This was exactly what they came for. But then Kelly shifted gears. She had built her entire career on being relatable, on connecting with everyday people, and she had a question that millions of Americans were thinking. She leaned forward slightly and said, I have to ask because so many people wonder about this. What's it like going from having everything handed to you to actually having to work and build something on your own?" The studio went quiet. It wasn't a rude question. It wasn't even particularly harsh. Kelly asked it with genuine curiosity, the same way she'd ask any guest about a major life transition. But Prince Harry's expression changed immediately. His smile faded. His jaw tightened. He shifted in his seat and stared at Kelly for a long, uncomfortable moment. "I'm sorry, what?" he said, his voice sharp. Kelly, ever the professional, maintained her friendly demeanor. "I just mean, you grew up in palaces with staff and security, and now you're out here building your own brand. That's got to be quite an adjustment, right?" Prince Harry let out a laugh, but it wasn't friendly. It was cold and dismissive. "Handed to me? You think my life was just handed to me?" The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful banter they were used to. Kelly tried to smooth things over. "I didn't mean it like that. I just think a lot of people would be curious about such a big life change." But Prince Harry wasn't backing down. He leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked on Kelly. "You know what, Kelly? I find it really interesting that you, of all people, would ask me that question. You got famous from a singing competition on television. You think that's somehow more legitimate than being born into a family that served an entire nation for centuries?" The audience gasped. You could feel the tension ripple through the studio. Kelly's smile faltered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. She had been in the business long enough to handle difficult guests. "I actually auditioned 3 times before I got on that show," she said calmly. "And I've been working nonstop for over 20 years since then. But this isn't about me. I was just asking about your experience." Prince Harry shook his head, his irritation growing more visible by the second. No, let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you sit here in your comfortable studio, asking people invasive questions about their lives, judging them, making assumptions. You don't know anything about what I've been through. You don't know what it's like to have the entire world watching your every move since you were a child." Kelly remained composed, but her voice took on a firmer edge. "You're right. I don't know what that's like. But I do know what it's like to be criticized. I do know what it's like to have people make assumptions about me. and I've never used my platform to lash out at people who are just doing their jobs." The audience murmured in agreement. Team Kelly was forming right there in the studio, but Prince Harry was too worked up to notice or care. He stood up from his chair, his microphone still attached. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the problem with people like you. You think you can just say whatever you want, ask whatever you want, and there should be no consequences. Well, I'm not going to sit here and be disrespected." Kelly stood up too, her Southern grace still intact, but her patience wearing thin. "With all due respect, I didn't disrespect you. I asked you a fair question that many people wonder about. If you can't handle a simple question about your life choices, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." That was it. That was the moment everything exploded. Prince Harry's face turned red. His voice rose loud enough that even without the microphone, everyone in the studio could hear him clearly. "How dare you? Do you know who I am? I am a prince. I have done more for charity and public service than you could ever dream of. And I don't have to stand here and take this condescending attitude from someone who got lucky on a reality show." The audience was stunned into silence. Kelly, however, didn't flinch. She looked Prince Harry directly in the eyes and said, "I know exactly who you are, and right now, you're acting like someone who can't handle being treated like everyone else. I treat all my guests with respect, but I also ask them real questions. That's my job. If you can't handle that, then maybe you should leave." Prince Harry ripped off his microphone, the wire snapping from the force. "Fine. I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't need any of this." He turned toward the audience and pointed. "And you people, sitting here, applauding her, you have no idea what you're talking about. None of you understand what it's like to sacrifice everything for your family." Kelly crossed her arms and spoke with a calmness that made her look even more in control. "Actually, a lot of people in this audience have sacrificed for their families. They work multiple jobs. They struggle to pay bills. They do it without millions of dollars or royal titles. So maybe take a moment to think about that before you tell people they don't understand sacrifice." The audience erupted in applause. It was clear who they were supporting. Prince Harry looked around the studio, realizing he had lost the room completely. His entourage, who had been standing nervously off to the side, started moving toward him. But he wasn't done yet. "You know what your problem is, Kelly?" he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're jealous. You're jealous that no matter what you do, no matter how many albums you sell or how many viewers you get, you'll never be more than a talk show host from Texas. I was born into greatness. You just got lucky." The studio went completely silent. Even Kelly's band, who usually provided light musical cues throughout the show, had stopped playing. Everyone was watching to see how Kelly would respond. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "You're right about one thing. I am from Texas, and where I come from, we were taught that it doesn't matter where you start in life. It matters how you treat people along the way. And right now, you're showing everyone exactly who you are. So yes, I think it's time for you to leave." Prince Harry sputtered, trying to find words, but nothing coherent came out. He turned and started walking toward the exit, his team scrambling to follow him. But before he reached the door, he spun back around one more time. "This interview is over, and you'll be hearing from my lawyers. You can't treat me like this." Kelly didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "The door's right there. Have a good day." Prince Harry stormed out, slamming the studio door so hard it echoed through the entire space. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The audience sat frozen, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. Then, another person joined in. Then, another. Within seconds, the entire studio was on its feet, giving Kelly a standing ovation. Kelly stood there, her hands clasped in front of her, and she looked genuinely overwhelmed by the support. When the applause finally died down, She sat back in her chair and looked directly into the camera. "Well," she said with a small laugh, "that was unexpected. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some music to hopefully lighten the mood a little bit." The cameras cut, but the audience was still buzzing. People were turning to their neighbors, whispering excitedly about what they had just seen. Kelly's producers rushed onto the stage, checking on her, making sure she was okay. She assured them she was fine, though you could see her hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline was clearly pumping through her veins. Backstage, Prince Harry was reportedly shouting at his team, blaming them for booking him on the show in the first place. His voice carried through the hallways, and staff members exchanged worried glances. Security was called to make sure his exit from the building went smoothly. Nobody wanted any more confrontations. Meanwhile, Kelly took a few moments to compose herself. She touched up her makeup, took some deep breaths, and mentally prepared to continue the show. This was live television. There was no stopping, no going back. She had to push forward. And that's exactly what she did. When the show came back from commercial break, Kelly addressed the audience with the grace and professionalism that had made her a household name. She didn't trash Prince Harry. She didn't gloat. She simply acknowledged that sometimes interviews don't go as planned, and she thanked everyone for their support. Then, she introduced her next guest, a local teacher who had gone viral for her creative classroom projects. The show went on, but what happened during those heated minutes would become the most talked about moment in daytime television history. The confrontation had everything: tension, drama, a clear hero and villain, and an ending that left everyone picking sides. Kelly had remained calm, professional, and dignified throughout the entire ordeal. She had asked a fair question and refused to back down when challenged. She had stood up for herself without losing her composure. Prince Harry, on the other hand, had shown a side of himself that shocked viewers. His entitled attitude, his dismissive comments about Kelly's career, his inability to handle a simple question about his life, all of it painted a picture of someone who expected special treatment and threw a tantrum when he didn't get it. His outburst about being a prince, his comparison of his struggles to Kelly's success, and his final insult about her never being more than a talk show host from Texas all revealed a deep insecurity and arrogance that viewers found appalling. The moment Prince Harry said Kelly got lucky, he lost whatever sympathy he might have had. Everyone knew Kelly's story. Everyone knew she had worked incredibly hard to get where she was. She had auditioned multiple times, faced rejection, dealt with criticism about her weight and appearance, and still managed to build an empire through sheer talent and determination. To dismiss all of that, as luck was not just insulting to Kelly, it was insulting to everyone who had ever worked hard to achieve their dreams. And when he claimed he was born into greatness, he revealed exactly what Kelly's question had been getting at. He did believe things had been handed to him. He did think his royal birth made him superior, and he couldn't handle someone questioning that narrative. The irony was lost on him, but it wasn't lost on the audience. Kelly's response had been perfect. She didn't attack him personally. She didn't bring up his controversies or his family drama. She simply stood her ground and reminded him that real people, regular people, deal with real struggles every single day without the safety net of wealth and privilege. She defended not just herself, but everyone sitting in that audience and everyone watching at home. The contrast between the two of them couldn't have been more stark. Kelly, who had grown up with very little, who had worked her way up through talent, and perseverance, remained humble and grounded. Prince Harry, who had grown up with everything, who had been given opportunities most people could never dream of, acted like a spoiled child who wasn't getting his way. It was a masterclass in how not to conduct yourself in public. As Prince Harry walked out that door, he left behind more than just an awkward interview. He left behind his credibility. He left behind any claim to being relatable or understanding the common person. He showed everyone that beneath the carefully crafted public image was someone who still believed the rules didn't apply to him, that his title, meant he deserved special treatment, and that anyone who dared to question him would face his wrath. Kelly, meanwhile, walked away from that interview with her reputation not just intact, but enhanced. She had handled an impossible situation with grace. She had refused to be bullied or intimidated. She had shown that kindness doesn't mean being a pushover, and being professional doesn't mean accepting disrespect. She had given a masterclass in how to maintain your dignity in the face of someone else losing theirs completely. The audience had witnessed something rare and raw. They had seen a real moment unfold, unscripted and unfiltered. They had watched someone try to use their status and title to intimidate, and they had watched that tactic fail spectacularly. They had seen what happens when someone who's used to deference and special treatment encounters someone who treats everyone the same, regardless of their background. Every person in that studio knew they had just witnessed television history. This wasn't a planned bit or a publicity stunt. This was a genuine clash of personalities and values, playing out in real time for everyone to see. And they also knew that when they left the studio that day, they would be telling this story for years to come. Kelly had simply asked a question, a reasonable, relatable question that millions of people wondered about. She had done her job as an interviewer, and for that, she had been attacked, insulted, and dismissed. But she had also done something else. She had shown Prince Harry, and everyone watching, that your title doesn't matter if you don't have character. Your birthright doesn't matter if you don't have humility. And your status doesn't matter if you don't have respect for others. In 34 seconds of unbridled anger, Prince Harry had undone years of carefully managed public relations. He had revealed who he truly was when things didn't go his way, and the world had been watching. Kelly hadn't needed to say much. She had let his own words and actions speak for themselves. And they spoke volumes. The interview that was supposed to be a friendly chat had turned into a defining moment for both of them. For Kelly, it was proof that staying true to yourself and treating people with respect will always win in the end. For Prince Harry, it was a harsh reminder that acting entitled and expecting special treatment will turn people against you faster than anything else. As the audience filed out of the studio that day, they weren't talking about the musical guest or the other segments. They were talking about the confrontation. They were talking about how Kelly had handled herself. They were talking about how Prince Harry had lost his temper. They were taking sides, and overwhelmingly, they were Team Kelly. The moment had been explosive, shocking, and completely unforgettable. It was the kind of television that people would replay and discuss for years. And it all started with one simple question about privilege. A question that Prince Harry couldn't answer without proving the point Kelly was making. A question that exposed the very entitled attitude he claimed he didn't have. A question that led to the most dramatic exit in talk show history.